King David was an ascended master. He's the writer of the Psalms. But really, the most interesting story of ascension from the Bible, I think, is Elijah. It's a really fascinating story because he had a disciple named Elisha. So there's Elijah going up into the chariot of fire, so to speak. He ascended. So what happened was that they were walking along the river Jordan, and Elijah said, well, I'm going to be translating. I'm going to ascend. And Elisha said to him, well, if you do that, may a double portion of you be upon me. Meaning, may I take your spirit. May I become as you are. And when he went into heaven, when he went into the chariot of fire, what happened was his spirit went into Elisha. Now, Elijah had been a great and holy prophet, and he had raised the dead. He had untold miracles, made people well, instantaneous healings. And right after he translated, Elisha became as Elijah. He was able to do all those miracles. Basically, he became a walk-in. Elijah had taken over Elisha's physical frame and became a walk-in. A walk-in is what they call Parkya Pradesh in India. It means that you make a contract with the soul of the other being. You go into that being and live on as an immortal master.
So you have some of this for the body.
All right, so another divine being that I like to communicate a lot with, and by the way, you can communicate with any of these divine beings. All you have to do is ask. It's really that simple. Another one that I like to be in touch with is Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the spirit of wholeness within you. And Holy Spirit is the feminine aspect of God. And Holy Spirit is often depicted as a dove. So I like to draw pictures of everything, so I drew a picture of her. And she's a beautiful, gentle being of light that you may be in touch with. Also, the archangels are divine beings, radiant beings of light. This is a picture of Archangel Michael, who is like the strength and power. He represents strength and power. He's great for divine protection. You can call upon him for protection. We have Zadkiel. Zadkiel is purifying, uses the violet cleansing flame, the cleansing flame that Saint Germain also uses. We have Uriel, who is great strength and power and energy. We have Raphael, who is healing power, great healing power. We have Gabriel, who is the communicative, the center of communication. We have Camuel, who is divine love, represents divine love. We have Jophiel, who is divine knowledge, divine intelligence. So you may call upon any of these divine beings at any time to assist you. Then we have what we call the cube of Metatron. Now, a Metatron happens to be one with Enoch. After Enoch's translation, after he became an ascended being, he actually became Metatron. And if you read the book of Enoch, not in the Bible, but in the Apocrypha, you can read the book of Enoch. You can read it online. It's easy to find. You can read it. It's fascinating. It's a description of going into all the realms of existence, the celestial realms and all down to demonic realms and all realms of existence. So, anyway, Metatron was Enoch. All right, so this is, by the way, all of this is from my book, Ascension. Ascension is the book. And this is a little chart. I'm not going to go through all this because you can read it in the book. But we have the different rays, the rays of light or the rays of human experience. We have the colors of those rays. We have the archangel and what we call the archaea, because there's always polarity. In everything in life, everything in the universe, there's polarity. There's the male and the female aspect. So for every archangel, there's a female counterpart, or archaea. And then there's the archangel retreat for each of these archangels. There's an Elohim. The Elohim are the fundamental sort of beginnings of creation from which everything springs. The Elohim and the twin flames of the Elohim and the Elohim retreat. So, for example, we have the archangels that we just discussed: Michael, Jophiel, Chamuel, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and Zadkiel. And Michael means, the name itself means one who is as God. Jophiel is the beauty of God. Chamuel is the seeker of God. Gabriel is the strong man of God. Raphael is God who heals. Uriel is the fire or light of God. And Zadkiel is the righteousness of God. And then they have their counterparts. For Michael, it's faith. For Jophiel, it's Christine. For Chamuel, it's charity. For Gabriel, it's hope. For Raphael, it's Mother Mary. For Uriel, it's Aurora. And for Zadkiel, it's amethyst. And then we have the Elohim and their twin flames. And as I said, you can read about it in the book Ascension and learn more about the Ascended Masters and beings of light. So there are twin flames on every level of creation. There's a male and female counterpart of everything. Because we live in a duality. We live in a dual universe. If we weren't living in a dual universe, there wouldn't be anything. Because you have to have light and dark. You have to have male, female, up, down, yin, yang. You have to have counterparts or nothing exists. I mean, we talk about oneness, about going back to oneness, and our consciousness can experience oneness. We can experience that level of the absolute, which is nameless, formless, one without a second, which is wholeness, which has no boundaries, which has no duality in it. However, that is beyond this relative world. We live in the relative world. So at every level of the relative world, we have a male and female counterpart.
I missed half of it.
Okay, now one of the very interesting Ascended Masters is, who's this? Saint Germain, exactly. Comte de Saint Germain, who was believed to be the son of Prince Rákóczi Ferenc, who's the national hero of Hungary. However, we don't really know if he had anything to do with that in particular. No one really knows what his origins are, and more definitely, no one has any idea of when he died, if ever. And his death was basically fate. So he was a very interesting character. He wore diamonds on his rings, his watch, his snuff box, his sword, and his buckles, worth over 200,000 francs. No one knew where his wealth came from. He never had any wrinkles throughout any time anyone ever knew him, which was over the span of over 100 years. He had no wrinkles. The French ambassadress saw him in Italy and then 50 years later saw him somewhere else and thought it was his son. He said, "Oh, no, that's me. I am the Count himself." And she said, "Well, but that's impossible. You must be over 100 years old." And he said, "Well, madam, I'm very old." And he had absolutely no wrinkles. He was completely youthful during the entire time that anyone ever saw him or knew him. And he was very popular in the courts of Europe. He was an expert as a scholar, linguist, in history, chemistry, alchemy, poetry, art, music, and swordsmanship. He could speak French, German, English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, Arabic, and Chinese as though he were a native of each of those countries. He had a very strange ability where he could write with one hand and with the other hand at the same time, and then when you would take those two pieces of paper and place them together and shine them to the light, they would be stroke for stroke exact replicas. He could memorize the newspaper and recite it back to you days later, word for word. He knew everyone who came to see him. He knew who they were in advance before they ever walked in the door, and he knew exactly what their question was. He was often found in lotus posture, in Indian yogic meditation. He never ate in front of anybody. Nobody knew what his diet was. He claimed to have the secret of immortality. He was an alchemist. He claimed to have the philosopher's stone, which is the secret powder of immortality that all the alchemists sought. He said that he had learned this secret in India, and that the secret powder had 777 ingredients in it. Even today, there is a ritual in India called Kaya Kalpa, and he taught that ritual to a great master, one of the masters of the Masonic persuasion when he was alive. And there were some women at court that he gave these powders to, and that retained their beauty for many, many years, for decades, including Ninon d'Enclos. Ninon d'Enclos, who was a famous courtesan, he gave her the elixir of life. She was the lady of the court of Louis XV, and it preserved her energy and beauty over 25 years. And when she was 80 years old, I believe it was, yes, at age 80, her grandson fell in love with her. So it's very unusual that these women were able to maintain their beauty. This is a picture of Saint Germain in his ascended form. Call upon Saint Germain when you want purification, when you want your energy field to be cleared away, when you want the atmosphere to be cleared. Call upon Saint Germain and his violet transmuting flame, and immediately